Okay, part two of me picking a breakout player from each NBA team. Now, part one, I said I did 15 teams and I looked back and counted. I actually only did 13 because apparently counting is difficult for me. So in this video, I'm actually going to cover the other 17 teams in the NBA. Let's just go right ahead, starting with the Indiana Pacers. I'm going to go with Obi Toppin as my breakout player for the Pacers. Again, one of the things I look at is I look at their projected rotation, right? So you got Buddy Hield, Halliburton, Bruce Brown, Andrew Nembhard, Benedict Mathurin. That's your guard rotation. Where the Pacers have a lot of questions is at the forward position. One of the things that I really like about Obi Toppin on the Pacers is that the Pacers last year were top 5 in the NBA in pace. This is a team that loves to get out and run in transition. And Obi Toppin's greatest strength that he's shown is that he's really, really good in transition. He's really athletic. He's really fast. He can get up really quickly. Moving on to the Houston Rockets, there's a few players you could pick here. I feel like Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun, most people know how good they are already, and both of them already put up some pretty big numbers. So I'm going to go with the other trendy pick, which is Jabari Smith Jr. This dude has been absolutely lights out in the Summer League and in preseason so far. You know, I'm not going to compare him necessarily to Kevin Durant because I feel like every tall dude that can shoot gets compared to KD, and that's not fair. Because, you know, they're not KD. But, you know, I see a little bit of like, you know, Rashad Lewis maybe, maybe like a Kristaps Porzingis even. And all that is very encouraging. Jabari Smith Jr. did play 31 minutes per game last year, so I'm not betting on a minutes increase. What I am really betting on is both a usage increase as well as an efficiency increase. Because last year, Jabari Smith Jr. was just not efficient as a scorer. This year, I expect that to improve dramatically, and so that will lead to an increase in points per game. Moving on to the Miami Heat, this is a little bit difficult to choose. This is a very old team, but if there's one player that I think can really have a good showing compared to last year, it would be their free agent acquisition, Josh Richardson. Now, Josh Richardson was drafted by the Miami Heat, so his first few years, he did play in Miami. It's not going to come as a shock to see him do well there. You know, the past few years, Richardson has been bouncing around the league, playing for mostly mediocre or bad teams. And so Josh Richardson on what should be a playoff team. He's going to soak up a lot of the minutes that are left behind by Gabe Vincent and Max Strus. I guess given Richardson's age, it's not appropriate to call it a breakout year, but let's just say I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Moving on to the Milwaukee Bucks, their breakout player, in my opinion, is going to be MarJon Beauchamp. Now, I'm not going to dwell on this point too much because I covered a lot about MarJon Beauchamp in my video about the Damian Lillard trade and how that's going to impact the Bucks. But long story short, I mean, they traded away Grayson Allen. There is a spot to be filled in the starting lineup. I'm not confident, 100% confident that's going to be Beauchamp, but I think eventually if Beauchamp is any good, it should be him. He is the young player on their team that I think can definitely step up into a bigger role, so I'm going with MarJon Beauchamp. Then for the Minnesota Timberwolves, this one is pretty easy for me. It's Jaden McDaniels. Now, this is another player that played a lot of minutes last year. He played 30 plus minutes, but he had very few shot attempts per minute play, per possession, and also a very low usage rate on offense. It just so happens that, you know, he's on a team with Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. They're trying out this weird double center thing. So Jaden McDaniels, I think in today's NBA really should be playing a 4, but he ends up playing more 3, which is a little bit less than ideal. But at the same time, playing a smaller position, being on the perimeter more, has allowed Jaden McDaniels to show us more flashes of what he can do from the perimeter, handling the ball, driving to the rim, attacking mismatches. And he is just so talented. I would think if the Timberwolves are trying to win games, are trying to make playoff runs, they should give Jaden McDaniels not necessarily more minutes, but definitely more opportunities on offense. Okay, moving on to the New Orleans Pelicans. You know, a few weeks ago or a month ago, I guess it was, I would have said Trey Murphy, but he's since gotten injured. He's going to be out for, it looks like, at least 2 months to start the season. Now, it's possible he comes back and plays really well, but it's going to be hard for me to pick a player that's going to start the season injured. So if it's not going to be Trey Murphy, I guess I'll say it's Herb Jones. I'm reluctant to say it's going to be Herb Jones because I think for him to truly have a breakout year, either Zion or Brandon Ingram, I think, has to get hurt, which is possible, right? I mean, Zion has not really been healthy his entire career. So I think it's possible. Moving on to the New York Knicks, I think there are 2 good candidates here. I think Quentin Grimes and Emmanuel Quickley. So I'm going to go with Quickley because for Quentin Grimes, it's hard for me to see him get a minutes increase or a usage rate increase. I mean, the Knicks also added Dante DiVincenzo, which adds more depth to their guard positions. And Quentin Grimes, I'm not sure, has shown quite enough of being more than a 3-and-D player. You know, Jamal Crawford in his heyday as a 6th man of the year for the Clippers, His best seasons there, he would put up like 16, 17, 18 points per game coming off the bench. And I don't see why Emmanuel quickly can't do the same thing coming off the bench. He was a 6th Man of the Year finalist last year. I expect him to be a 6th Man of the Year finalist again this year. Okay, on to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Again, a team with a lot of young talent to choose from. I'm not going to really consider Chet Holmgren because he's pretty much a rookie. He did not play last year. So with that in mind, I'm going with my highest confidence bet, which is Jalen Williams, I.N. Williams. I'm sure you guys have heard OKC has 2 players with the same name. So they call one of them J-Dub and one of them J-Will. Yeah, J-Dub is the better one. Okay. Out of everybody on OKC so far, again, taking Holmgren out of the equation because we haven't seen him play yet, I think J-Dub is the guy with the most likely chance, the highest chance to become an all-star caliber player. He's a 3-level scorer. I mean, this preseason, I love seeing him run pick and rolls, attacking the rim. He really doesn't have the breathtaking athleticism that, you might expect from a guy with all-star potential. But as we've seen with players like Luka Doncic and James Harden, you can absolutely be an elite finisher at the rim, around the rim, without having, the highest vertical on the roster. You can do it with timing, with strength, with basketball IQ, and I think J-Dub has exhibited all of those traits. You guys know that I'm super high on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I took a lot of heat for ranking him in my top 6 projected NBA players for this next season. So I'm just saying, the moment OKC gets a second star next to SGA, it's over. Okay, moving on to the Orlando Magic. Again, this is a young team, a few guys to choose from, but I'm just going to go with Franz Wagner. I think this makes the most amount of sense. He has good numbers already. So last year, 32 minutes per game, 18, 4, and 3. But I think this year he can take his game to another level. One of the big reasons is that the Orlando Magic have made an emphasis that they want more shooting. This was a big weakness of the team last year. They added Joe Ingles. That should help. They also have a bunch of young players on their roster who all kind of struggle with their three-point shot a little bit. I think it's very reasonable to project that a lot of their younger players can get better at shooting threes, which should open things up for Franz Wagner, because Franz Wagner is best when he's operating in that sort of mid-range to close area. Moving on to the Philadelphia 76ers, not a team with a lot of options to choose from, and a lot of this depends on what's going to happen with James Harden, but assuming James Harden gets traded, I think it should be Tyrese Maxey. And Tyrese Maxey, of course, everybody knows he's very good. He put up big numbers last year already. I think he can take his game to a borderline all-star level with a higher usage. There were plenty of times last year, both in the regular season and in the playoffs, where Maxey clearly deferred to James Harden as far as handling the ball and initiating the offense. Whereas I am not entirely sure that James Harden was all that better than Tyrese Maxey last year. So I think once Harden is out of the picture, Maxey absolutely should have the confidence and the green light to basically be the go-to guy on the perimeter for the 76ers, and that should lead to some pretty big numbers. Okay, on to the Portland Trail Blazers. I'm going to pick DeAndre Ayton. Again, I covered a lot of this when in my video about the trade. DeAndre Ayton has put up, way above average production on winning teams, and he still has all-star potential, I think, and he's still young enough to where you can see him getting there. I just think he's in a good situation. I mean, in the Portland front court, there really are not that many players competing with him for touches, opportunities, minutes. So I expect DeAndre Ayton to play a lot and to put up some big numbers on Portland. All right, moving on to the Phoenix Suns. For the Suns, the big question for them this year is who's going to step up, right? I mean, we know their top 3 players are really, really good. We know that Nurkic, if healthy, is going to be productive. But the question is, who are the role players that are going to step up? And that's really going to determine who their breakout player is. And out of all the players on their roster, the guy that I like the most to really take a big leap for them is Bates Diop. Bates Diop has played the last few years in San Antonio, and so there's a lot of people that have not really seen him play. But he has shown some really nice moments, and most importantly, he has shown improvement across each of his seasons in terms of developing into a really nice 3-and-D role player. The thing I like about Bates Diop is that he is a larger wing player. He stands at 6'8", and that's going to be important for the Phoenix Suns because there's going to be guys in the league that Devin Booker and Bradley Beal are going to struggle to defend because they're both around like 6'5". They're both guards. And of course, Kevin Durant is getting older. You cannot expect Kevin Durant to really lock down star forwards in the NBA on a nightly basis. So Bates Diop, I think, has the chance to really fill in that role, become that go-to stopper of bigger wing players in the NBA. And if he shoots the 3-ball well enough, that's all he has to do on offense. He'll be a breakout player for them. Okay, moving on to the Sacramento Kings. I like Keegan Murray. I think that's a fine pick as well, but I'm going with Davion Mitchell. And the big difference for me is that Keegan Murray last year played nearly 30 minutes per game, whereas Davion Mitchell only played 18 minutes per game. I think Davion Mitchell very much is the favorite to become the sixth man, or the de facto sixth man for the Sacramento Kings. I think he should be playing nearly 30 minutes per game. The fact that he played so much and played so well against Golden State last year in the playoffs is a really good sign for a young player. That means the coaching staff really trusts him. I really want to see, Davion Mitchell next to De'Aaron Fox, actually. I think that makes for a very dynamic offense. So I'm going to pick Davion Mitchell as my breakout player for the Sacramento Kings. Moving on to the San Antonio Spurs, another young team. You have a lot of options to choose from. Devin Vassell just got a big contract extension from the Spurs. You can expect him to play up to that contract. I'm actually going to go with Jeremy Sochan. So the big reason for this is I think the addition of Victor Wembanyama is going to be really good for Sochan. Sochan, at this point in his career, can't shoot the ball very well, and he really should not be shooting. Where he's really good is inside the paint, with his athleticism, with his physicality. And in that sense, he complements Wembanyama really much. We know Wembanyama can play on the perimeter. We know he's going to spend some time on the outside. I like the fit with Wemby and Sochan. One of the things that really impresses me about Sochan, and this is not surprising coming from a European player, but Sochan is a very smart player. His passing is really underrated. He has shown some really nice flashes of being able to read defenses as a big man, as a young big man. And so the Spurs this year with Wembanyama definitely project to be better than they were last year. And Sochan, I think, is one of those players that gets better with better talent around him. You can call him like a reverse Westbrook. Okay, on to the Toronto Raptors. I'm going to pick Scottie Barnes. Scottie Barnes had a somewhat disappointing second year where in a lot of areas he had some regression. But at the same time, I think a lot of that is because the Raptors were really a hot mess last year. It's not like the Raptors were the worst team in the league, but just in a sense that their rotations were all over the place. It was not clear who was getting minutes on that team from a night-to-night basis, and it was not clear that they developed any sort of chemistry. This year, the team looks very different. Fred VanVleet gone, Nick Nurse gone. And the one area where Scottie Barnes showed some noticeable improvement last year was him as a ball handler and passer. I think Scottie Barnes definitely has the skill set to be a point forward in today's NBA, and that will lead to more opportunities for him. And I think a lot is in place for Scottie Barnes to have a big year for the Raptors. Okay, for the Utah Jazz, I'm not going to overthink this choice. I'm just going to go with Walker Kessler. Kessler actually only played 23 minutes per game last year, which is a little bit surprising considering how good he was. But he should be playing close to 30 this year. And Kessler is incredible. Kessler really has all-time defensive potential. He's not there yet, but Kessler can eventually get to that Rudy Gobert, Dikembe Mutombo, Mark Eaton level of that big center that just clogs up the lane. Now, the big thing for Kessler is that in today's NBA, he doesn't have the privilege of playing in the same era, as Mutombo did, which means that Kessler will have to be better guarding the perimeter as well. Today's NBA is way too spaced out. There are too many big men that can shoot. And Kessler has, not shown great ability in defending the perimeter. So that would be a big challenge for him. But I don't see why he can't get a lot better in that area. He is so young. And I think Kessler is actually a very good bet to lead the league in blocks. Moving on to the Washington Wizards, I think Jordan Poole is a fine pick, but I'm actually going to go with Daniel Gafford. So with Porzingis gone now, Gafford should be a 30-plus minute per game player. That's going to be a big minutes increase for him. And he's going to have a real stranglehold on the center position in Washington. One other thing to know about the Wizards is that they should get some better point guard play this year. They added in Jordan Poole. They also added in Tyus Jones, and that I think is a pretty significant addition. It's going to help a player like Gafford, who really relies on having good point guard play to get him those points in the pick and roll. But okay, that covers all 30 teams, I believe. If I missed a team, I guess I'll have to add it in the comment section or something. But that's it for this video. I'm excited for this NBA season to start, and you guys can expect some more content coming soon as well. See you next time.